guys? It's your boy, TheJerkDonny here, and we're here with episode 2 of Arrow to a Botany.
Hey everyone, it's Critical here from a new gameplay.
As I mentioned in my last video, we were going to talk about ethics, but I realized it's too broad of a topic, so I should condense it down a bit. We're going to be talking more about animal testing and animal rights, as well as we're going to look at alterations to genes and the ethics that come with that. My co-host for this amazing episode, he's a man who's well hung, one of the best drivers in the world, and has a fascination of sitting on top of Dwayne Johnson's. My co-host here, Bateman. How's it going, Bateman?
You found the Instagram?
Yeah. No, you sent it to me.
Oh, did I?
Yes.
Oof. Shout out to our one viewer, Donovan's father. Who's doing a great job keeping up.
So let's start with the very first thing. So with animal rights, I guess we should just get into like the more general thing about it. How's your general view of animal rights?
I think it's a difficult topic because we try to make rights for animals as humans, and we use our human perspectives to try to define what an animal's right should be.
Yeah.
And then there's the whole question about I'll let you. I'm gonna throw it back to you because I could talk for a while about that. So.
Well, personally, I think like the way I see it, there's always two frames of mind of it. It's either you believe animals are equal to us, or you believe we're above animals.
Mm.
Now, I personally think, I hate to say it, like it's just the way my mind works. I think I'm above animals, but I don't like mistreat them, right? So if like we can do like, I don't believe in, like, the cosmetic side of it, like testing shampoo on, like, rabbits and shit, because that doesn't benefit mankind. But if, like, we can figure out how to, like, let's just say a rabbit catches a disease that's harmful to humans. If we can figure out how to cure it on them, I'd rather that than be it on another human being. That's just my personal take.
I think one thing I wanted to bring up was, like, the whole perspective of mankind or humankind being above animals. Like, a lot of that comes from religion.
Yeah.
So, like, God gave everything to humanity, including all these animals for us to hunt and kill and eat. And, like, that's one of the perspectives as to why some people might think that they're above animals, which it's not like, it's at the end of the day, it's not like someone saying I'm above animals is a bad thing.
Yeah.
Because, like, as a biologist, too, like, looking at it logically, we're above animals in certain ways, like, say, so for intelligence, like, I may be above a bug.
Yeah.
Like, you know, maybe not an ant colony. Cause
Hashtag bugs lives matter.
But, you know, like, there's always ways that you can sort of value yourself above other things. So for animals, like, I might be multicellular opposed to some single cellular animals. And intelligence is a big thing, and that's also connected with consciousness. So people think, like, what if this animal doesn't have a nervous system? If it can't feel pain, then testing on it would be fine.
Yeah.
Because we're trying to, with ethics, I think we're trying to avoid harm and cruelty.
Exactly.
And so when you put yourself above animals, too, there's all the questions about, like, oh, how much harm am I doing to it? And does it even feel pain? And what is it conscious of the pain? Is it aware of that? And so, like, I think you can't just group animals as a whole, but you have to actually look at individual species and, like, does this species, can we test on it? Does it feel pain? And you brought up cosmetics, too, which I thought was interesting because, like, there's a lot of values tied to that, too. So for you and I, like, we don't give a shit about cosmetics. We don't care about makeup. We don't think it's necessary to our life. But for, like, a fashionista down in California, like, if she can't get her makeup because there's no testing going on, like, maybe she's going to freak out. And, like, that would really affect her. And so values get tied in here.
The thing is, like, cosmetics isn't... When you're comparing it to, like... It's the way I see it is how you weigh it. Like, I don't think most people weigh cosmetics over human life.
No.
That's the problem I have, is because a lot of this is harmful to, like, for example, the biggest one is, like, monkeys and rabbits that get tested on.
Yeah.
Because their fur is closest to, like, our hair or whatever.
Yeah.
And a lot of them just end up having to be killed afterwards because there's so much damage that's done by, like, certain chemicals. And I don't really agree with that because, like, it's not really for the betterment, but I get the business side of it because cosmetics is one of the biggest companies. Yeah. You can look at, like, on YouTube, like, the James Charles, and I have no idea who else who does the makeup tutorial stuff, and it's a big thing. But I lost one of the points I was going to say.
That's okay, but that's what I meant too. Is like, we don't give a shit about cosmetics.
Yeah.
We don't care about animal testing, but like maybe some people really.
I mean, what you meant to say is we do care about animal testing.
Well, I mean, like we don't want animal testing,
Yeah,
so I don't
okay.
care about it. Like
Yeah.
I'd rather it not exist.
Yeah.
But there's some things that you test on animals. But for some people too, like because of their certain set of values, like they want to test on animals so that they can get makeup in the end of the day.
And the other thing the other thing we should look at too is different cultures, because in North America, like in Canada and the United States, they have specific guidelines you have to do before animal testing. Like, oh, you can do it in a petri dish, then you don't do it on an animal. You have to make sure it's not hurt and all that. But if you go to other countries, like in Europe, like back in the day in Europe, everybody, like, if you couldn't get approved by the ethics board here, they go over to Europe where they're more lax, and they can get through stuff through. Look at a lot of psychology papers. That's how you got like the one where the guy gets him to shock him to death one.
Oh, yeah.
That was done in Europe because they have more lax. So it's more cultural. And you can probably see a lot more animal testing over maybe... Europe's more progressive nowadays, but maybe more over in like other countries. So I think it's also a cultural thing. So we can't really just be like, this is right just because this is how our culture views it.
Yeah.
That's kind of a tough thing. But to the public, they might not know this. In Canada recently, they have passed a bill, or they're passing a bill, called Bill S-214. And basically what this bill does is they're going to try to make cosmetic testing on animals illegal in Canada. What's your take on that?
I mean, that's difficult because, like... So you brought that up earlier, is what if there's this disease that's killing a ton of humans?
Yeah.
And we need to test it, but we can't test it on humans because it's going to kill
No,
us.
no. You can still do animal testing.
Okay.
Just not for cosmetics.
Oh, I mean, in my opinion,
Yeah.
maybe I'm biased. I'm a dude. I don't wear makeup. Not a lot of guys I know wear makeup. Not a lot of girls I know even like to wear makeup anymore.
Yeah.
I don't see it as necessary for humans.
Well, it's not necessarily makeup. Sorry, when I mean cosmetics, it also means, like, we can't test shampoo.
Oh, okay.
We can't test, like, stuff for cleanliness as well.
That's difficult. So makeup I can understand, but some cosmetics too, like those are on your skin, and people think like your skin is a nice barrier, and it is. But what if some of these cosmetics can cause skin cancer, and we don't know about it? We're not testing.
Well, the one thing I would be worried about is what about baby shampoo? Because you have to be very careful about that. That's why there's like the tier lists and all that are specialized. Like, how do you really make sure the shampoo is safe for like a baby?
Yeah.
Without the animal testing.
Yeah. And I think that's difficult because if you eliminate animal testing, then you have to sort of... I don't know if we're ready for that. I think the best option for us to do is to find some sort of... So we're able to grow meat now.
Yeah.
Like in a lab, we can actually... It's very expensive, but like...
Don't worry, we're going to be talking about that too.
What if we were able to mimic the thing being tested on?
Yeah.
Like the surface of it. Like what if we were able to... This is going to sound gross. But what if we were able to say like grow like an actual piece of human skin to test on?
Well, we can pretty much just do that, but it costs a lot of money.
And that's the thing is, but we can maybe optimize that and get it down to an actual like functional level where we could actually have this be viable.
Yeah. And
then maybe at that point we might be ready to remove animal testing, but I don't know, because to me animals come first. That's just my own thing, but I still very much, when I approach these topics, favor sort of the human view, because a lot of people have that view is that they're above animals, and or maybe not above animals, but that animal testing is important.
Yeah.
And so I try to approach it from that angle too. And I don't think this is necessarily a good decision because so many cosmetics could be very harmful for people because you are putting it on your body, you're putting it on your skin, and there's a good chance that's not a good chance, but there's a chance that some of those things can get through your skin into your body and cause you to have not only skin cancer but other forms of cancer and other diseases. So I think testing is really important, and I don't really know what... That's the thing, is we're banning animal testing, but what's our alternative right now? I don't know, I haven't heard of an alternative that we can do for testing purposes. We need testing, but I don't know what our alternative is right now.
I think the problem with this one is, I like where they're going with this. Like, I like that we're talking about it, and they brought it up to, like, in laws and that, but it seems like they haven't really thought everything through, because I see two problems with this. One, like, yes, what if we don't have an alternative for us to test on, unless we don't know and they haven't like brought it out to the public yet.
Right.
And the other one is like, on top of they're not planning for other things, is this kind of opens the door for people to think, oh, why don't we just ban animal testing altogether? You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And I do agree that we should limit some of the testing, because I think some of it's outrageous. Like, I don't think we should be putting lipstick on a bunny.
No, I agree.
But I think we should. I think this is one of those one of these things where you have to approach it in baby steps and not just throw out this big bill.
I agree.
Because there's so much repercussions. Because think of, like, if we're gonna look at this like in a common. I know this is like a sciencey podcast, but if we look in this economical way,
but
this
you
is
know,
good.
one thing too about our podcast is, like, if it has a focus on science, the one thing about science is that it's embedded into a culture of all these other things, like economics, ethics, things like that. So.
Exactly. But the economical fallout of this would be that cosmetics makes a lot of money a year. Like, I work at a grocery store, and cosmetics is one of our best-selling products.
Yeah.
Because you see all these celebrities wearing it and all that, and it's just in our culture to be outwardly beautiful, right? And we all need shampoo, we all need to wash ourselves. So the repercussions is, if they can't test it, then they would have to probably spend more money to do more.
I mean, the other question,
and then the prices go up.
You brought up is, do we need all these new cosmetics?
Yeah.
Like, do we need to keep making them, or are the ones we have good enough right now? Because I'm comfortable using the same shampoo and soap the rest of my life.
Yeah.
And lotion's lotion. You just put some aloe vera on your skin, you're good to go.
Yeah.
It might be a hit on economics, like you said, but, like, do we need to keep making new cosmetics? Is this something we need to keep doing? Because maybe that's the idea, is eliminating animal testing, is maybe we don't need to keep creating new products. Maybe we just use the products we have now.
Yeah, I personally don't.
But that's not a capitalist viewpoint, right?
Yeah, exactly. That's what I was gonna bring into this. Is like, I don't know. I personally think we don't need. I'm gonna still use Old Spice Head and Shoulders, not sponsors. Please sponsor us. But I'm gonna use those products till the day I die, pretty much.
Yeah.
But
I guess that's the one thing.
But then again, you're limiting, like, business, because then you just create a monopoly of just Old Spice, Dove.
Yeah, and as in a capitalist society, you're trying to have competition among markets so that you can create new and better items and to also pump up the economy. So that's the one problem with that, I guess. But, like, the big thing that I see now talking about this is, if we don't have an alternative, all I see is, okay, we ban animal testing, it goes over to human testing because we still need to do testing. A lot of people get sick, and a lot of people get sued, and then we just go right back to animal testing.
Yeah.
Like, I don't think this is going to work unless we have a good alternative.
That's why I think they should take the baby step approach, like limiting more and more, just making more regulations.
Yeah, because makeup already, too, is like, I don't fucking know. I can't even put my personal opinion on there, but, like, I don't like makeup.
Yeah.
I don't really date people that like makeup either. I would rather have people just be natural, but there's also, like, an art aspect of makeup that people like. They like sort of, like, having the artist design on
some people also like to do cosplays and dress ups.
Yeah, so I mean, so there's obviously a purpose to it, but then that's what the ethics question becomes, is the reward of having makeup as good as all the suffering it might cause to some of these animals? And I don't believe it is.
Yeah.
I don't know, that's just me, but I think that's the thing about, back to the question about banning this, is, do we have an alternative, and if so, like, what is it, and how well is it? Because I haven't heard of one.
Yeah.
That's just me, though.
So, to continue on this topic, and to go into a different path of this, I believe we're both more, like, middle-of-the-road type of guys. We don't side directly on, we should always have animal testing.
I'm a big fan of anal.
And we are demonetized. It's not like I'm monetized anyways.
Yeah, we're not making any money. Who's going to shut us down?
PETA.
Trudeau's going to bust into that door being like, mm-mm.
And then there's also, like, I find that the media likes to paints animal activists in a bad light. But then again, you see groups like PETA just shitting all over.
Well, let's not talk about PETA, because PETA isn't an environmental group. They're terrorists.
Yeah.
Like, and they're not even. They've done some shit to animals themselves just to get awareness. So,
stand up for a second.
I mean, like, they're not good. That's all I'll say. And yes, there's always going to be extremes in any sort of movement, but it is hard to be like a rights group when like small organizations don't have a lot of power unless they protest. Anyway, yeah, that's all I have to say.
So, in my research for this, I came across something very interesting that I wanted to bring up. I don't know if you're aware of this. Are you aware of the Animal Enterprise Terrorism Act, or AETA?
No.
It's an act that was brought into the U.S. in 2006, which basically was a way, if I was to sum it up briefly, it's a way for enterprises to combat anti-animal testing groups. So basically, animal group testing groups have been protesting, like, don't test on animals, and helping push for laws that are quite costly to these enterprises. So basically what this act does is, if a new law comes in that removes animal testing, these enterprises are compensated for it. Now, this is a quite controversial act. This is the United States. I don't believe it's in Canada through my research. And basically, a lot of the backlash of this is that a lot of these protesting groups, got arrested for protesting, and basically a lot of public perception of this is that the government has been protecting, like, these big cosmetic companies or these big, even like research companies, from being allowed to be attacked. So this is basically the brief overview. What is your thoughts on that?
I think it's tough because, like, on the one hand, yeah, you do have some extremists, and you do have some organizations really, like, pushing their boundaries as to what would be considered okay in peaceful protest.
Yeah.
Because everyone in the States is allowed, in their constitution, the right to peaceful protest.
Yes.
I can't remember the actual word of it, peaceful, like, demonstration or something like that. But they're allowed to gather and relate their thoughts. Are they allowed to bust in through private property and start stealing things from people?
Of course not.
Probably not. But then you do see like, and then there's a weird gray line now, because, you know, all these issues on ethics. The thing about ethics is it's not black or white. It's all entirely based on what humans think is right.
Yeah, it's all shades of gray.
It's all shades of gray. 50 Shades of Grey, if you will. Anyway, back to this thing. So I saw this video of these people busting into this, like, poultry farm for chicken, and they were just, like, stealing chickens from this place. They found, like, a couple of dead chickens, and they just kept stealing them. And I'm like, I don't know. That's a gray area, because, like, do you legally then have the right to rescue dying animals if it's someone else's property on their property? And are animals even property in the first place? And I think, like, when you have these laws that are so on the side of industry, is what laws are protecting. So it seems like there's a bias there. Is what laws are protecting the industry in these situations, and what laws are protecting the animal rights people in these situations.
Yeah.
Because, quite frankly, so there's this recent situation of mine. One of my friends found their significant other to be cheating.
Oh.
And they spied on them, but they figured out they were cheating.
Yeah.
Is that a morally wrong thing to do if they spy and find what they're looking, or find not maybe what they're looking for, but find that they're doing something bad? And that's like, arguably, it's like, yeah, it's a risk, but I don't know if it is, because what if these animal rights people come into this place and say it's the poultry farm, and they find all these dying and starving chickens, and they're like, well, would you not, if you saw a child in the street about to be hit by a bus, you would take it off of the street because that's the right thing to do. And there's all these rights protecting the industry on these scenarios, but what if they actually break into this place, they break the law, and the organization is breaking the law because they're not providing proper care to their animals, but they're protected because these people broke in and started rescuing their suffering chickens. But what rights are protecting them? I think if there's nothing protecting these people, then I think it's almost biased towards industry and the economy.
Yeah.
I think it's kind of unfair.
Yeah. The problem, like, I like the argument you brought up about them breaking in and saving the animals if they're dying. The only problem I see about that is if you protect the protesters while they're doing that too, is that it just opens the door for all of them to just break into every laboratory and stop animal testing. That's even good animal testing.
And that's another thing with these animal rights groups is a lot of them have no fucking clue what's good for an animal.
Yeah.
Because a lot of them are just operating off of their own human experience.
Yeah.
They're thinking that, oh, this is happening to the animal, it must be suffering based on my experiences as a human.
Yeah.
One thing I would say to that is, like, the argument for free-range hens and free-range chickens. Everyone thinks that's the best thing to do because cage hens look really sad and miserable.
Yeah.
We don't know if they're sad and miserable. They're in a cage and they're a chicken. They're not telling us anything. And then the free-range, people think this is such a good idea, but then they're out there and then the chickens are beating the shit out of one another, killing each other because they're trying to establish these dominance hierarchies.
Exactly.
And they're also out in the environment where they get salmonella infections and where they get all these bacterial infections instead of being in a sterile environment.
Yeah.
And so it's like things like that where sometimes animal rights organizations don't have the research, the proper research to actually make these decisions. They're motivated by their own opinions, which is dangerous.
Exactly.
Because a lot of people don't have, like, good, I shouldn't say good opinions, but opinions that are founded on evidence as opposed to just feelings and beliefs.
Exactly. I think that's the bulk of the problem with this whole animal testing controversy, is that we keep attributing human traits to animals. I think that's the problem here. It's like we try to humanize like a chicken or like a cow, but they have different experiences than us. They have different like feelings than us. I guess a great example is that it's like a Facebook meme now, but it's an old quote from a book. I don't remember the book. Is that this man saves a snake from a burning fire, and the snake bites him. So he drops him back in the fire and picks him up with the stick. And somebody asks him, "Why did you still try to save the snake?" It's like, the snake's nature is to bite me. My nature is to save it.
Yeah.
So I think that's a great example of showing that all these different animals. I'm not trying to say that snakes are the worst things in the world, but they are. But in my opinion, but I think that's a lot of the problem here is that because like even with the free range chicken argument, like our friend, I'm not gonna say his name. I'll call him by his nickname, Phoenix. He used to work on a free range chicken place, and he told me that a lot of times these chickens would just suffocate each other because there's so many of them.
Yeah.
So when they go back into like their sleeping areas or whatever, I wanted to say barn, but I don't know. People use coops or barns, doesn't matter, right? And there's so many of them that they'll just legitimately suffocate each other, and then you just have a bunch of dead chickens in the morning.
Yeah, that's fucking sad too. Like, right?
Yeah.
Like, it's almost like sometimes there isn't an ethically right thing to do.
Yeah.
Because we don't understand the situation well enough, and I think that happens a lot. I think that's the one problem with ethics too is the law in nature and the law of animals is life and death. That is it. That's like their whole basis for who they are in their existence is I am alive or I am dead. But our basis for life is good and evil. And that's what our ethics is based off of. Is we're basing our way of managing an animal's existence based off of our own existence, which is all about good and evil, whereas in theirs is about life and death. Yeah, there's also avoiding suffering, but we don't know how much an animal suffers because I still don't think we have good pictures of this. Like, does having a nervous system imply that you can suffer or feel pain, or does something like a single cell that can respond to like its environment, does that imply it can suffer? Like,
yeah, it's just the problem is we don't have a concrete definition of where we want to put everything.
I just think we don't understand enough, which is just kind of the common theme I think behind our whole podcast now. Is that we don't have a fucking clue what we're doing.
And then, so does most of the people in the world, as you can tell by how they're approaching these issues. Yeah, if two idiots with degrees now, hey, we got degrees, please hire us. With degrees now, if we can present a problem to these big issues that they're just throwing into Parliament and hoping to get passed. Yeah. Maybe they should take a better look at it. Or maybe we just don't know enough. But I think this is a good place to segue into our next topic. Do you know much about XNA?
Nope. Tell me about that.
It's a xenonucleic acid. So basically what xenonucleic acid is the sugar backbone is synthetic or artificial. They replace it, and this way they can insert this DNA into like anywhere to help fix a mutation.
Oh, okay. So it's just like modified DNA.
Yes.
Okay.
Or RNA.
Okay.
What's your thoughts on that before we dive into the ethics side of this? Like, do you see like the benefits of it?
Yeah, of course. I see the benefits. I also see the concerns.
Yeah.
This is something where I think I'm pretty aware of both sides. And I can't take an opinion on it because I don't know if there's a right answer for it yet.
Well, all these next topics are going to kind of combine with this just because we're looking at basically humankind artificially messing with either human formulas or animal formulas, if you think about it. And I guess the big problem people have with XNA, even though it has been proven to be very beneficial, it's helping people with their diseases and mutations that they have in their DNA. The biggest concern people have with it is that if the XNA decides to mutate, because we can't control our DNAs. Well, we can kind of control it, but we can't at the same time because stress is a thing. So if it mutates, we can't control how it mutates, and we don't know what happens if it mutates. That's the largest concern, because basically, I can understand like if you look at a lot of this. Let's first look at like the religious problem with this, is that they're ruining what basically God created. Is basically what scientists are doing.
Well, I mean, a lot of people don't believe in DNA and evolution and all this stuff anyway, so it's like I think they should just be left out of the equation, to be honest, because there are people that aren't even willing to believe this stuff. So how can you even? That's not the argument here, is whether or not this exists. The argument is, for people who think this exists, is should we use it or not?
No, there's still religious people who believe this exists.
Yeah.
And their problem with it is that they're messing with the basic human formula.
Sure.
What's your thoughts on that? Is messing with humankind?
I just want to briefly talk about the mutation point that you said too. I find the mutation argument kind of funny because like mutations are natural, and I don't say that they're a good thing all the time, but like a lot of mutations that happen have no consequences.
Yeah.
And it's just funny that people are afraid of this DNA mutating when there's so much other DNA in your body that could fucking mutate and cause you a whole lot of other problems. Like mutations are something that there's some concern of these like DNA sequences going back to where they were before, but I don't know if the concern is really merited because your DNA is going to mutate. That's something that you have to live with.
Exactly.
That's going to mutate and it's going to cause you problems. Like that's a part of life that I think people need to accept. Yeah. Whether or not they want to use this stuff or not.
I agree with you completely. I do, however, give some merit to the whole fear of the unknown.
Oh yeah.
Because putting.
It's a human thing, right?
Yeah, you are putting an artificial sugar backbone into DNA.
Right.
And you're causing it to, and if it mutates, so far there hasn't been like any bad cases that we know of, but I can see why people would be like, nah, I don't want that, just because if we're not sure how it's going to mutate, why take the risk of the unknown? But there's the benefits of it, obviously, as well.
Yeah, we can definitely talk more about that. But your question was about what I think of the religious people saying that this is okay. I live by one really simple code, which is do what you need to be happy, so long as it doesn't affect someone else from being happy. That means don't go around murdering people just because you think it's fun to do.
Don't go around being a dick to people.
Don't go around being a fucking asshole. Like, do what you want to be happy, whether it's wearing a goofy hat or like, I don't know, running every day or going on a hike or playing video games inside. As long as it's not affecting someone else's happiness to a reasonable concern, then just, be happy. Do what you need to.
Yeah.
So when it comes to, religious people saying that, I don't like this stuff, and this ties into abortion, I don't like this stuff because it goes against my religious beliefs and how I was raised religiously, that's fine.
But don't let your religious beliefs get in my way of what I think is the right thing to do.
Yeah.
Because I'll respect their beliefs. I'll respect them to not want to use this stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But they also have to respect my beliefs if I respect theirs.
Exactly.
I think that's the end of at the end of the day is there's that sort of mutual understanding of one another. That if I want to do something that's not affecting you,
mm-hmm.
then I'm going to do it. So if they don't want to use this xDNA stuff, like one case of this, is similar scenario, is Jehovah's Witnesses. They will not accept blood donations.
Yeah.
So if they're dying of blood loss, it's their belief to not accept blood donations because they want to keep their path clear.
Mm-hmm.
That's their religious right.
Mm-hmm.
That's fine. I want to accept blood though because medically, that's good for me.
Yeah.
I would love that. And so I think it's a similar scenario where I think people's choices here should matter.
Yeah.
But the option I believe should definitely be out there.
Yeah.
Because we've modified the DNA of organisms for thousands of years.
Yeah.
And the way we've done that is through selective breeding. We've done that with humans, we've done that with animals, we've done that with dogs, with cats, with any sort of animal that's close to human proximity. We have been selectively breeding plants and animals such as ourselves for thousands of years. And the only reason that people, I shouldn't say the only reason, but one of the reasons people are afraid of this gene editing now is because the tools we're using to do it are frightening because people don't understand how they work. We understand selective breeding. We understand taking two dogs and shoving them together into a room. We understand what they're doing very well to how they're...
Some people enjoy watching it, but to each their own. We don't king shame here.
I guess not. Anyway, the reason people are afraid of it now is because they don't understand it. And yes, there's obviously going to be some reasonable concerns for people, but one of the reasons people are afraid of it is because they don't understand it. But we've been modifying DNA for thousands of years.
Yeah. I guess to lead into my next question is, how do you feel about researchers tweaking with DNA and RNA? Because I personally think it's fine.
Yeah.
As long as, like, we're not doing it on anybody live, obviously. Because we don't know, like, the implications. Unless we're, like, doing something we've researched and shown to be, correct. Like, I don't want us to be like, oh, we don't know how exactly this, if we switch this around in a live house. See, like, we can do it in live, which is what's generally done, but a lot of people are having concerns with, of course, the advancement of all this, altering of DNA and RNA.
Yeah.
And I was just wondering what your thoughts on that is.
I mean, the one thing about altering, we've been doing that a very long time. Like, we've been doing gene editing for a very long time. Mm-hmm. Decades, obviously. Mm-hmm. I have a very practical sort of viewpoint on this stuff. Like, I say DNA is nothing more than a molecule. A lot of people see DNA as this is the foundation for who I am as a person. But me being more of a materialist,
I'm gonna make that a shirt. DNA is the foundation of who I am.
Look, that's our first merch.
Hey.
But like that's how I see it. Is I see life as a combination of proteins, lipids, like polysaccharides, and nucleic acids, DNA. Mm-hmm. So I'm very pragmatic with that sort of stuff and that sort of viewpoint. Altering DNA, that's all it is to me. Is altering DNA.
Yeah.
Where it's from means a lot to me, but what if it's just a segment of DNA that they just engineered in a lab, that they just created? It's just a molecule to me. It's nothing more than a protein. Like, a protein's a protein.
I guess that's what a lot of it comes down to, is personal preferences. Do you want DNA from something else? Because there's sometimes they'd take, like, a piece of DNA from, like, a monkey or a goat and insert into a person to make it better. Or would you rather have that, or would you rather have artificial?
I wouldn't care of the source. I would care of what's the impact.
Yeah.
Because I'm more of results-oriented.
But I can see why people are concerned about the source. I can see why somebody wouldn't want, like, a goat piece in them, or I can also see why someone wouldn't want an artificial piece in them.
I don't understand that viewpoint, because
it's just a building block.
Well, that's yes, but mainly it's that people are. I'm just going to say this word. People would be foolish to think that 100% of our DNA is human.
Yeah.
Like 15% of us is virus.
Yeah.
50% of our human DNA came from viruses. It's like,
yeah.
there's
and I'm not saying that's actually like absolutely established, but there's evidence for that stuff. Like we have changed over time a lot, and at the end of the day, DNA, the molecules making up, is all the same across life on planet.
Yeah.
Like, we have the same DNA. We have those, like, 4 nitrogen bases, 5 nitrogen, or the other 5 if you include the ones in RNA.
Mm-hmm.
And you have the same molecules making up the backbone. So I don't understand that concern when DNA from a goat is the same as DNA from a human, because it's both DNA.
Yeah.
There's no difference in that stuff except for the little DNA sequence. But the origin, it's the same molecule. I don't get that at all, because again, like, most of our human DNA could very well be just from other animals.
What you're saying is I agree with completely, just because, like, what I mean, I can understand their fears. I think it comes down to a lot of people aren't really educated on how DNA is.
Well, no, yeah, that's true too. Like, I'm not saying that they're
like, we're not trying to be like, oh, we're better than you because we know this, but basically what we're trying to say is, like, people who are concerned about, like, oh, I don't want a goat part of me, I'm such above them, or oh, what's this artificial thing, and basically it's the same shit.
It's the same shit.
Yeah.
That's all it is. But
Yeah.
not a lot of people understand that. So I understand if people are afraid because they don't know that.
Yeah.
I get
And
that.
then you get people who, like, you get the high and tidy guys going like, oh, we shouldn't be accepting this because they're putting goat DNA in us, they're going to turn us into billy goats. It's like, no, that's not how this works. You're just fear-mongering. That's why I think a lot of the problem is when you come to, like, the ethics perceptions of this, is that people are attacking people's fears.
Yeah.
And a lot of people are fear of the unknown. If you break it down, DNA from a goat, DNA from a machine that makes it, and DNA inside of us is all the same shit, because it's the same building blocks that make it up.
So we've talked a lot about the fears from the public eye, but I'd also like to bring up some points from the more, like, the research community and the people working on this stuff. So one of the big things too is people have this new tool. One of them, probably the hottest new tool for gene editing is called CRISPR, CRISPR-Cas9. And we're using this for editing genomes, and, like, all the people in research see this huge potential for what it can do.
Yeah.
But a lot of pushback because people are afraid of it. But I gotta bring up the question. This is sort of something that, like, I think this is sort of one of the underlying fears of a lot of scientists, is what if we develop the ability to cure cancer, or to cure every human disease, to cure every human DNA genetic problem, and we don't do it because people are afraid of it? And what if there are absolutely no consequences of this? What if there are zero concern? What if there is established no problem with it?
Yeah.
But what if it doesn't get developed because people are simply afraid of it, and there's no foundation for that fear? What if it's entirely safe?
Yeah, and then you hear a lot of conspiracies about that, like, oh, they've developed it, but they don't want to sell it to the public.
And can you imagine being a scientist whose wife had died of cancer, and him spending his whole life trying to find a cure, and he finds it, and for someone to come up to him and say, no, this isn't going to happen because I'm afraid of it, and it doesn't happen.
Yeah, I can see that. That's quite heavy, isn't it?
Well, I mean, it's an important topic because there is the potential for it to do that.
Yeah.
I could die tomorrow from some weird genetic disease.
Yeah. That we all have the cure to.
That we have the cure to.
And then the other thing, when you're talking about, when you're bringing up the whole scientist pushback, that just makes me think of, like, a lot of stuff back in the day when we were, like, curing certain diseases. But people just thought, oh, that person's just crazy. That's just fine. You just let them be themselves.
Yeah.
And then some people are like, no, it's this disease. And then you get pushback of scientists saying, no, it's not. It's going to be interesting in, like, our lifetime, in, like, 50 years from now. What's happening now that are big issues that are just nothing back then.
True.
That's what I think a lot of the problem is that a lot of scientists are closed-minded, and they don't want to accept this other alternative.
Well, I think that happens too, right? Sometimes, and that is true. A lot of scientists, especially people with PhDs, they can be really stubborn.
Yeah.
Because they...
Well, I don't blame them either. They've been studying the same shit for 17 years, getting the same results.
Yeah.
And then they have all this work behind them. Then somebody comes, and then they think, "Oh, my work is just worth for nothing," even though it's not. Obviously, it's a chronicle.
Yeah.
It shows the evolution, but people don't see it like that. So I can understand the pushback. But that's where you get all these ethical problems. In some places that people don't want to accept this new thing like XNA.
Yeah, I think there. I mean, I don't see. I'm on the one side, but I love to see both sides. And on the other side is a lot of people are afraid of scientists, and there's quite a few reasons for that. I think one of the big things, too, which I learned recently, is that sort of science is all about progress, and it's about knowledge. It's about finding knowledge, and it's all about making progress. And one of my profs from outside of my science bachelor in, like, a different field, like, he brought up the problem of sometimes science can get so caught up in progress that it forgets to look at the risks.
Yeah.
It just gets carried away, and we get really excited, which I can agree with. I can see that as people getting really excited about finding something and just be like, yeah, let's do it, look at all the potential it has, but not really analyzing the situation enough and questioning yourself and being like, what are the risks here?
Mm-hmm.
I think that's really important. And one sort of example of that is that CRISPR-Cas9 thing I'm talking about, that system for genome editing. Just recently, we created the very first CRISPR-Cas9 engineered baby, and that's now a thing in China.
Don't worry, we're gonna get into that too.
So we're already there, and I'm wondering is if this was too quick.
Yeah. Well, since we're on there, let's just bring up what I'm kind of thinking we're gonna. It kind of correlates with this. I was gonna bring up the idea of cloning, which is like animal cloning. I'm not talking about like asexual reproduction, because that is an example of cloning, because you are splitting something in half. But this kind of goes with cloning and animal cloning, which is something people have a huge problem with, as well as like stem cell research and all that.
Yeah.
Basically using human parts to make an exact replica of a human or a goat.
Yeah.
Some of the research we've already done with that is they've developed where is it? I'm so unprofessional, my bad. Anyways, I just remember them listening that they've cloned mice. They've recently cloned cows and goats. And they're testing right now cloning some humans, even though there's a lot of pushback from religious groups, ethical groups, scientists, public perception.
Yeah.
And a lot of people are relaying it to conspiracies, as well as people thinking like, oh, we can just engineer people, uprising fears like that. Yeah. There's a lot of fears with that. So after I've thrown all this at you, what's your general take on cloning?
That's something that is really scary for a lot of people, which that one I understand a lot of the fears of.
Yeah.
Because that's pretty terrifying. The results of that can be very terrifying. So, but at the same time, like I said, I'm very pragmatic. I look at this, and I was literally just hooked up to a machine the other day that adjusted my heart rate based on whatever the input was.
Yeah.
And that's what made me realize that I'm just a meat robot.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, that's our second merch.
I'm just a meat robot.
Shit, I actually don't remember that one. But so again, I think this actually has a lot of potential, but it's such a scary thing for a lot of people that I think you really need to establish that and to just set your limits with that very, very strictly.
I think this is like, as we were talking about the animal test, this needs baby steps.
Yeah, I agree.
Because they're already breeding, like as you mentioned, they're cloning meat, like cows and chickens, just for human consumption.
I mean, I also get that, because that's going to save a lot of, like that. So one of the biggest contributors to climate change is agriculture.
Yeah.
And food.
Obviously,
meat agriculture.
Yeah.
And so you can limit that with this technology. Mm. And at the same time, as you can make it cruelty-free.
Yeah.
That's one of the solutions, instead of having
There is one ethical issue that some people have brought out about it, is that do these clones' lives matter too?
Yeah, and that's the whole thing of consciousness, though.
Yeah.
Does this slab of meat have consciousness? In my opinion, no.
Because some people are breeding like live cows that are functional like other cows.
Then I would say that's absolutely an animal at that point.
It's just the weird thing about cloning is like a lot of people back in like the days were like talking about this as like, oh, this will be the new thing. We're here.
Yeah.
And it's happening.
Yeah.
And I don't know about you, it's kind of cool, but at the same time, it's scary as fuck.
It's,
if you think
it's cool to me, but I'm more so just understanding and sympathetic with all the people that are afraid of it, because you can really make some scary shit with this.
It just depends on the regulations of it. You know what I mean? Because like, if people just start cloning, making
that's what
people,
I'm saying, yeah.
I think we're not at that point yet. Like, I know
I don't think we should.
I think they're working on, like, from because I'm a psychologist background. If you didn't know, I think they're already making like brains.
Because I think at that point you're playing God.
Yeah.
When you can clone something like a human,
Mm-hmm.
and it can, I think, so science is like, I think that's mainly the progress thing, is science can get so excited and want to focus on progress that it can get ahead of itself.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's one thing, is the playing God thing. I, even as a biologist, I don't know if I'm comfortable with that. I don't like the feeling of having life in my hands like that.
Yeah.
Of being able to create a life. I don't really like that idea or that feeling. I don't know if that's mine to take, because at a certain extent, I think you have to give yourself into the laws of reality and
the one thing
universe.
The one thing I have problems with that is that some people who are like very narcissistic, and there's that in every walk of life.
What, they want to clone themselves so they can live forever?
Well, not that. They want to control everything. So you can see, like, that's like what media can paint the picture as, is that there's somebody at the head of science that's very narcissistic and just wants to clone, make the next revolution. But I obviously don't believe that to be the case as of now.
Yeah.
I don't know how I feel about animal... I don't mind animal cloning as much. It's just I'm a bit worried about human cloning as of right now, because I don't know what direction or what use they want to use for it. If they want to use it for like for example, if we can get rid of animal testing, we can clone these unconscious human beings as test subjects for things.
Even that's scary though, right?
Yeah, that's very scary too. Even if we go into like the robotic world of this, and people are making like conscious robots, some of these robots have said like on their own, I want to take over the world. Which is hilarious. Adorable and yet scary at the same time. So there's all these advancements in science. So I can see the fear in like common folk that don't understand it or are just not interested in it.
Yeah.
And have never taken the time to look at it.
So
but view it very...
So one thing too is, like it or not, I think people at the end of the day, like myself, and a lot of scientists can sort of disassociate themselves from their own human thoughts.
Mm-hmm.
But I like to kind of touch in with my own reality. And like I said earlier, I think if we're going to do this, it has to have very strict limits. Very strict limits. Because you can really do some scary shit.
If you don't mind me interjecting, if you were to create like the guidelines or the limits or the laws of it, how would you do it?
I would have a very, very large survey of like any sort of personality, any sort of like a lot of religious input, a lot of input from like government, from scientists, from the public, especially the public.
Yeah.
That would be huge, because at the end of the day, everyone's public.
Yeah.
Everyone's a part of the public. So that's the big thing, is you would need a lot of opinions, because this is like a very, very, it's the very definition of an ethical issue.
Yeah.
Something that can affect everyone and that everyone should have a say in.
Yeah.
Because the beliefs here are what's really going to sort of steer the direction of this.
Yeah.
So I think you would need to figure out first is how the hell you're going to get everyone's input on this. And figure out what's the ethically right thing to do.
Yeah, instead of just shitty Twitter polls.
So I think this is an issue where it's like you said earlier, science can just be sort of creative and curious.
Yeah.
I don't think we should have curiosity from this as, ooh, what if we can clone this? What if we can clone this? Because it's such a scary thing, and I think a morally charged thing, that we shouldn't be using it for curiosity's sakes. We should be using it for practical sakes. So one thing I can see is, imagine being a 4-year-old boy and losing all your limbs to some horrible freak accident.
Yeah.
And then having the option to use your own DNA to clone your limbs back and to get access to that and to remove sort of physical handicaps like that.
Exactly.
Can you imagine, like, I would love if I can empathize, but I can't sympathize with these people
about
losing a limb. But like, can you imagine the sort of relief that would have on someone to know that they could get
Well,
the
one of my
ability to walk
coworkers, he got, I'm not going to go into the whole story, but he has damaged his left side of his body.
Yeah.
So he has to do the limp walk, and he doesn't have much function in his
Yeah.
other arm. And this kind of research, and this kind of, if cloning became readily available, and like this DNA adjusting and DNA therapy and gene therapy, if you mix that all together, and you can make him into like what I am.
Yeah.
And then you wouldn't get like the public ridicule on these people that they get, and that they can be a normal human being without being shit on by the public, which is where you give a lot of the empathy to.
Yeah.
But the problem with like the moral issues, the problem I have is that when you look at cloning, it's not really in the public. You know what I mean? They're just kind of keeping it on the back burner, even though there's this huge advancements.
Yeah.
I think it should be brought more to the front, like you're saying, like get everyone's opinion on this. It should be in our courts. It should be in our, like the government should be talking about this and trying to figure out how to regulate this properly.
Yeah, at the end of the day, like a lot of issues with ethics just like don't come down to the public, which really sucks because a lot of the a lot of our problems as scientists come from public perceptions, and those sort of that shitty bias that a lot of experts in industries and scientists have from that the public have for them come from the fact that they weren't involved in decision making.
Yeah.
And shit like this. And that's why you need to have public stakeholders, is because we're already in a really bad spot with the public eye.
Yeah.
And we need to be really careful. And the way we can patch that relationship is by actually having a discussion and conversation with them. And if they say, no, we're not comfortable with this, well, it sucks to be us, because we can't do that then.
Yeah.
Like, obviously, sometimes experts, and I hate to say this, but sometimes people are misinformed enough that the experts know what's best. So, in my opinion, vaccinations.
Yeah.
A lot of people are anti-vax for not a lot of good reasons.
Yeah.
And sometimes the experts know it's like, well, too bad, we need to vaccine.
Yeah.
So sometimes...
But when you're talking about an issue that largely affects everyone.
Yeah.
On higher degrees.
Yeah, exactly. But, I mean, that's at the same time. Sometimes the misinformation of the public can get so huge that you do need to have the experts make the final call.
Exactly.
Not a lot of the time does that happen, because people are usually pretty informed. So I think that's one thing about this, but that's why I was saying that earlier we need really strict limits, because I see the value of this for some aspects, but I see the nightmares this can cause for a lot of other things. And so the tool itself isn't bad, and this is at the end of the day the same thing. The tool itself isn't bad, it's what you can do with it which is bad.
Yeah.
And that's what people are afraid of, because I'm not afraid of us regrowing limbs to use, because honestly I think that's some really great sci-fi stuff that we can actually get a lot from.
Yeah.
I'm terrified of people cloning their dead pets and dead relatives because they miss them.
Yeah.
And that's the sort of God-playing shit that I morally don't believe we should get involved with.
To add on to that, as the last topic I wanted to talk about is life extension. That comes with a lot of this. Is that you're playing God and you're extending your life.
Yeah.
Now, personally, once I hit 100, I'll be happy. And after that, I don't care if I die. Once I get there.
Yeah.
No, but I don't want to live forever, because that sounds like...
No, that's bad.
That sounds like torture. But there are some people that want to live forever, or they want to... Like, personally, I see it like, we've all lost relatives that we wish that were still here to this day.
Yeah.
But I don't think it's right for me to decide, hey, he should come back alive, or she should come back alive. That's too much playing God.
Yeah.
But what's your thoughts on life extension?
I would be fine with immortality if we didn't have a population problem. But at the time being,
even without a population problem, I'm not okay with
I wouldn't want to be immortal.
Well, I wouldn't want to be immortal, but if some people do...
I'm fine with people wanting to be like 500.
Yeah.
As long as we don't have a population problem. But at the time being is like, we have such a bad population problem that like, if everyone was immortal and just having kids, we would all... I don't know, the fucking planet would be destroyed. So death is a natural thing, I have to say that. When it comes to life extension, I agree to an extent. Once you hit the ripe old age of
69.
Once you hit the ripe old... yeah. So once you hit that age, a lot of people I know at that, when they're around 90, they're really cynical and they're just like, I've lived a long life, I want to be done.
Yeah.
And
I just want to enjoy what time I have left.
But modern medicine is life extension.
Yeah.
The fact that I had that surgery the other day is life extension. Mm-hmm. If I didn't have that, I could be dead next year.
Yeah.
So life extension to the point of having lived a long, fulfilling life, and you are happy with that. And I don't necessarily think it's a bad idea, because I think a lot of people, once they hit that age anyway, wouldn't really want to extend it anymore because they're ready. Yeah. But I think a lot of people die young because of, again, some of these genetic
When I mean life extension, I do agree with like the whole... There is some people that don't agree with... They believe in just natural selection to the very end.
Yeah.
And those are some very cynical people. But like when I was mentioning life extension, I didn't think about it that way. But yes, you're right. Medicine has advanced. I probably wouldn't have lived this long either.
Well, that's the whole... People used to live until they were 20.
Yeah.
That was...
If they were good, they made it to 32.
barely. Like, that was... The medieval times? Fuck.
Yeah.
You wonder why people married so young is because they were dead at 18. Like,
yeah.
And a lot of that is... like, medicine was the reason why we live so long.
I think the big ethical issues with medicine... not with medicine today. Like, there is some... We'll get into that another time. But I think when we're mixing with DNA mixing and stuff, is that the idea of that we play God and that we allow ourselves to live forever, which again, if some people want to do that, go ahead and torture yourself for that long. Be a fucking raisin at the end of it.
You really want to have that many breakups in your lifetime? An infinite amount of breakups? No, thank you. Pass.
Yeah. No, but of course, there's a religious side of this, which I think they have I think their opinion's most valid in this argument of living forever. Like,
yeah, and it does affect them, because anyone living forever would be taking away resources.
Yeah.
Like, if you had 4,000 immortal people, that's 4,000 people draining resources on this planet.
What's your thoughts on I can probably predict, but you never know. What's your thoughts on like religious groups against, like, I know you brought up the blood thing, that Jehovah's Witnesses won't accept blood, but what's your thought on religious groups, or even just people against medicine in general?
Oh, okay. I mean, so when I was younger, I think a lot of young people that wanted to be scientists had this really dogmatic belief in atheism.
Yeah.
And now myself, I'm more agnostic, and so I'm more of a middle ground.
Yeah. But
like, I've grown out of that because it's not healthy for anyone. To have that sort of view that religions don't matter is very I think it's incredibly rude and disrespectful. And I don't think a lot of people understand that why. And a lot of people call them, idiots, and that's really sad and unfortunate.
To be honest, they do bring up good ethical points we should discuss.
And I'm not trying to say that they're... I'm trying to say the opposite.
I'm trying to back your arguments.
Yeah, okay. Because at the end of the day, religious people or not, we're all people. Yeah. We all have belief systems, whether we call them a religious doctrine or not. Yeah. There are a set of beliefs.
If you think about it, science can technically be considered a religion just based off of their ideas.
Yeah, exactly. Right? Like, our belief system is truth and progress.
Yeah.
And that's a whole set of beliefs. And so, I think people need to... I think the problem is people need to respect one another a bit more and respect each other's beliefs. Again, like I said earlier, my one belief is that just do what you need to be happy, as long as it doesn't affect anyone else in the midst of doing that. And so we need to be respecting people's religions. We need to be respecting their beliefs. If they choose that they're dying in a hospital bed and don't want to take blood, that's their choice.
Yeah.
However, if someone is religious and they do not want to vaccinate, and their child dies because of that. If it's someone else's, if it's a parent in a situation that their child is not of the age to make these big decisions for themselves, and they're deciding on someone else's life, that's where it becomes gray and risky. Because I think that medicine in that case, if the child is not at an age enough to be conscious of those decisions, that I feel like, being that the parent is in charge of its life, that maybe, and I can be entirely wrong here because I don't know if there's a right answer, is that maybe that child should have medical intervention until he is of a certain age for him to
make his own decisions.
Yes.
Yeah.
Or her own decisions.
Ooh,
I think that's probably my thought on that.
I agree.
If it's someone else's, if it's someone's own medicine.
Yeah.
If vaccinations, if people were anti-vax,
Yeah.
and they didn't get their vaccine and they had measles and died, and that was their decision, then that's their decision.
Yeah.
But as soon as it involves other people, as soon as it involves it affecting other people, then that's where we have to intervene. That's why people are intervening.
Yeah.
This is not because these medical decisions aren't about them a lot of the time. It's about everyone as a whole.
Yeah.
And I think that's the problem. But if this is something that they choose, if they choose, I don't want to receive blood, because for the rest of my life I would be miserable having blood tainted, or I want to die a pure being, is what they would, I think, would be calling themselves. That's their decision. It's not affecting me. It's their choice. Because at the end of the day, no one is responsible for your own life. No one is legally or has the rights to what you decide for your own life as you as a human being other than yourself.
Yeah.
We have laws so that we do not affect anyone else's life. But the laws are also to protect our own decisions as to what we can make for ourselves.
Exactly.
So,
I was going to ask some questions to further this, but I want to save that for, because that's a whole other topic. With that would involve assisted suicide, as well as elderly on their deathbeds saying to die, and their parents say no, they're not in the right frame of mind. But we'll save that for another day.
That's rough.
I think this is a good way to end this little talk here. I think we tackled everything pretty well. Brought up the thing I liked about this podcast more than the other one is we're basically informing whatever listeners we have. I love you all.
I love you, one person.
Hey, I had 22 views in the last one.
Those were all me.
you
I'm very narcissistic. I just want to hear my voice 23 times.
No, but I like the points that we brought up. Is that the thing is, when you look at it, like, are you serious? Bring out snacks at the end.
They need to get my ASMR. All right, this one's called Colton eating Pringles. Yeah. Feel good.
To all you misophobic fans, I'm so sorry. But anyways, I think what we brought up is really great. That you when you look at science, what science I think fails a lot of the time is, I shouldn't say a lot of the time, what science fails to look at sometimes is that they just pass off the public, they just pass off religious groups just because they're not in line with their own thinking. And that can follow a lot of different things. It's basically open up your minds to other opinions.
At the end of the day, we live in a world full of people, and we can't just be caught in our own shell of science, and we have to be open to everyone.
Yeah. Because if you live inside your own bubble, then you never really advance, if you think about it. You need criticism. You need to be like, okay, maybe I'll look at this and look at that.
Some of the best lessons I learned in my science degree were based on, things outside of science.
Yeah.
About ethics and rights and morals and good principles and sort of perceptions and things like that.
Yeah. I think for our next podcast, we're going to look at invasive species. That's definitely a big issue in Canada, especially if you look at the Great Lake areas with all the fucking bullfrogs they brought in.
I mean, we could probably look outside and find 20.
Yeah, there's a lot of problems with plants being invasive.
Yeah.
We're also going to look at gene pollution, which we'll define then, and which will add to invasive species. But yeah, I think this was a great talk. Do you have anything else to say?
Don't get her pregnant, stick her in her butt.
And just remember, everyone, we're all just meat machines. See you in the next one.